Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our very special Platinum and Diamond members event. Joining us also are some of our corporate partners. It is the premiere of the Menulog Tales of Reinstatement. It's great to have Menulog on board with us here this evening. We are going to get the first look at the first episode of Tales of Reinstatement, 20 years since that fateful day back in 2001 when we were readmitted into the elite competition here in Australia. We've got over 500 people on our Zoom call tonight, all proud members of the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and it's great to have everybody registered and watching the show tonight. Now, at the bottom of your screen, you will see the Q&A function. On there, you can submit questions, and we'll have some of our panellists answering those questions later on this evening. And earlier on this afternoon, I hope you all checked your emails because you would have all been sent a Menulog voucher offering us all 10% off for today only for a Menulog order for tonight. They were emailed to you this afternoon. So if you haven't ordered your Menulog meal for tonight, make sure you jump on now and order now so you can enjoy it while we watch Tales of Reinstatement this evening. Now, first of all, the first special guest to join us is our CEO, Blake Solly. He is on the line here with us on Zoom. And Blake, how important is it for the club to recognise these milestone moments 20 years on from our reinstatement?
Oh, thank you, Jez. Look, firstly, I want to thank the members who are on the call tonight. I know it's a really challenging period for everyone at the moment in the community, but the people on this call are the most loyal and passionate and supportive of our members, and hopefully tonight's event reflects the speed with which we hold them, and that they enjoy what we've seen, which is a wonderful series and a wonderful first episode. But you're right, Jez, it's so important for the club to celebrate these milestones. I always talk about our club as having a heritage and a history and a tradition that's unique in rugby league. I think it's the proudest history and heritage in rugby league, but it's the match and mark of any club in world sport. I was fortunate enough to live overseas, and you walk around places like Manchester United or Liverpool Football Club, and they bathe in the history and the events of their past. And we are entitled to do the same because our history and our narrative is just as rich as theirs. And tonight is, I think, reflective of that. The episode that Maddie has produced, I think, does everyone who was associated with the fight back and the readmission justice. It celebrates what was a wonderful piece of work by an extraordinary amount of people, the people who appear in this series, the volunteers, the people who marched, and it's just a great opportunity to reflect upon that. All that hard work and all that passion that went into getting us back into the competition and has sustained us 20 years on now to where we are at the top of the table.
We were having a chat earlier today about how emotional this actual first episode is, and I hope all of our members that are on the line tonight might have a little box of tissues next to them, because it does evoke a lot of emotions when you do watch it. But what are the emotions and the memories that are evoked in you from 20 years ago being a South Sydney man?
Oh, it was just a terrible time. From a personal point of view, I remember it really well because my grandfather was a huge Rabbitohs fan. He grew up in Alexandria, and he absolutely loved the club. And he passed away in July of 1999, just before we were kicked out of the competition. And I can remember in that sort of period, it sounds bizarre and it sounds a bit strange, thinking how lucky it was that he didn't see what happened. That he didn't see the club kicked out of the competition, because it would have just destroyed him. And for me, it was really emotive because, dealing with tragedy like that, and then also seeing the club kicked out of the competition. But in many ways, the optimism and the hope came back when George and Nick and Group 14 and everyone sort of launched the fight back, and you felt like, geez, there might be a chance that the club will get back in the competition. We'll be able to stand together and cheer and watch it win again.
Absolutely. And speaking of winning again, let's come to the modern day. A big game tomorrow night against the Penrith Panthers, a chance to climb up the ladder even further before the end of the season. You've been in contact with the team up there at the Gold Coast. How are they feeling ahead of this big game?
Oh, they're pretty excited. I'll say that. As excited as Wayne gets before a big game. I think I spoke to him this afternoon, and he's really confident this is the best 17 he thinks we can pick as a club. So I think in previous seasons, Wayne was saying by this stage of the year, we had a few bumps and bruises and injuries, and Origin had sort of decimated our season and ruined our momentum. But We're 10 straight. Clearly, we've got our best 17 on the park, and we're fully fit going into the game. So he sees this as a big opportunity to, I think, lay down a marker for our ambition for the rest of the season, but also play some of those guys who are coming back this week into form. And ideally, over the next 8 weeks, this is the 17 that will face whoever we have to play in a grand final. And this is a chance to build some form and really go into that final series with a lot of momentum.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for your time tonight, Blake. We've got all our members on the line, corporate partner as well, and they thank you for your time as well.
No, thanks, Jeremy. And thanks again to all the members. Thanks to Menulog, who are wonderful partners. And as I said, I think Matty Lucas has produced something here that we can all be very, very proud of.
Very good. Thank you very much, Blake. And without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, hope you're enjoying your Menulog as you sit back and relax and watch the next 36 minutes of the first episode of our documentary series brought to you by the great people at Menulog, Tales of Reinstatement. Well, what a fabulous first episode of Tales of Reinstatement. What a fantastic job our video producer, Matt Lucas, has done there. And the best thing about it is there's 14 more episodes of Tales and Reinstatement to come, all proudly brought to you by Menulog. We hope that you all enjoyed that. We're going to hear from some of the key players coming up from that first episode and ongoing through those 14 episodes that are still to come. And the first person we're going to speak to is the man that produced it all, in Matt Lucas. Matt, are you with us here tonight?
Yeah, mate, loud and clear, Jez.
Mate, you've done a fantastic job in telling the story there, or starting to tell the story, really, with so many episodes still to come. Can you talk us through the process of how this started and how it's become a behemoth of 15 episodes?
Yeah, well, it would have been late last year. We all sort of came together, a digital team, in one of the meeting rooms, and we spoke about what was going to be our theme for the 2021 year, keeping in mind that it was also the 20th year since the club was reinstated. So, yeah, we thought about it and like, well, we have to do something about that. I spoke to a couple of people early on, and the original process was going to be sort of just short stories of whether it was, like Nathan Merritt debuting against the USA, maybe, short 5-minute to 10-minute videos of just sort of random little stories along the path that we'd release. Sort of the longer I went along and the more people I spoke to and I guess got more leads for, the more I realized that, well, it can't just be, segments of random little stories. It has to flow. It has to be a proper story because you can't ignore, I guess, the great behemoth and the great story that it is. So sort of as we went along, it was just sort of another step in the right direction, another person, more stories, more footage, more episodes. And the whole story of the fight back sort of formed, and I couldn't stop, and I just had to keep going and keep talking and interviewing people.
And you're still going, I believe. We haven't finished those final stories off, and there's possibly still some more interviews to go to tell the full story.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, we still got a couple more that we're aiming to get, but yeah, I guess 15 episodes in total. So yeah, it's going to be big.
Now, I hope you don't mind me pulling the curtain back a little bit. You're not a born and bred South Sydney man. You've come into the club, born in New Zealand, lived in New Zealand. You've got a liking for the Warriors. So what understanding did you have of this story before you started this project? And what are you hoping that some of our younger members watching this might learn and get an appreciation for?
Yeah, I sort of, I always knew the story about South being kicked out. I never, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, I sort of glazed over it for a lot of the time, maybe the first couple of years that I was here. I was like, yeah, I sort of get it, South got kicked out, yada, yada. But the more that I've sort of gone along, and especially with this story, I've understood just what it actually meant and just what it meant to people and everything like that. And so I guess when you've got such a big history and whatnot, you really need to celebrate it, and you need to acknowledge, I guess, Bob McCarthy's one that always talks about it. He says you got to respect the guys that dug the well. And the more people I spoke to and stuff, and I sort of realized that, like, yeah, you do have to tell these stories and you do have to celebrate these. And long term, like, if I guess it's easy for, I wasn't here when it all happened, but for younger people to see that story and understand, well, if that can, get someone in the States or someone overseas to understand the story and like the club, then I've done my job.
I remember you telling me a story about interviewing Roger Corser, the famous Australian actor, once, and he was similar to that story there, where he came from Melbourne and didn't know much about South, but he told you why he fell in love with the club.
Yeah, we did an interview with Roger Corser, started 2019 around there. And like you said, he was from AFL land down there in Melbourne, and he moved to Sydney for work around, it would have been, when the marches were happening, end of 99, 2000, and he'd moved into Surrey Hills, I think he said, and he was a Hawthorn supporter, and he was just sort of getting into rugby league, starting to understand it, and he was living in, like I said, in Surrey Hills, and he saw the marches going past, and he was trying to get to grips with what was happening. And I remember him saying that, if this club ever got back in the competition, that would be the club for him. And sort of, I guess it resonated with me a bit, because it is, you see what, it's more than just a football team. It's more than just guys running around a paddock every week. It's the fabric of social life, and it's what brings people from all over the country and around the world together. So it's quite a beautiful thing.
We saw about 8 or 9 characters in that first episode, but you've spoken to so many more people. What can we expect moving forward, and what were your favourite stories that you uncovered? Yeah,
so I guess after this we'll have 14 more episodes. We'll have the first one airing in September, but we'll have 15 episodes in total, so we'll follow the whole 99 season. Obviously the court cases, a lot of fundraising games, and then all those sort of stories in between, and everything that formed that 2.5 year period. And then also like a few more random stories in there as well, to sort of break it up. Like you said, one of my favorite stories was a guy called Max 22, who we'll find out probably 8 or 9 episodes in, but not meaning to break the story too early, but he was basically a super fan, and was born into a Rabbitohs family, and ended up performing at Town Hall to 80,000 people, which is probably one of the most uncanny stories that I heard on the whole sort of journey, where he was just a regular guy playing to 80,000 people, and like he says in the interview, that's Rolling Stones numbers. So those are the sort of things that sort of blew my mind throughout the whole process.
Fantastic. You've done an absolutely wonderful job with episode 1. We're really looking forward to episodes 2 to 15, as you say, kicking off in September. And thank you for your time tonight to talk to our members and our corporate partners.
No worries, Jez. Thank you. And I hope everyone enjoys it.
Great stuff. That's Matt Lucas, our video producer here at the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And next we're going to talk to 3 of the key players that you saw in that first episode. We're going to catch up with Steve McDermott, Martin Lissing, and Jerry Lissing. How are you, gentlemen? Probably just need to unmute there, gents, so we can all hear you.
How's that?
That's much better. How are you this evening?
Very well, Jeremy.
Yeah, we're all good.
Very good. I might kick off with you, Steve, because you kicked off the story of episode 1, and we could see the emotion in you when you were watching that footage from back in the day. How did you feel reliving that and watching that tonight with all of our Platinum and Diamond members?
It still evokes a lot of emotion, Jeremy. It was a very emotional time. I think our members that were around back then would feel very much the same as Jerry, Martin, and I. It was a very emotional time, and to relive it brings back a lot of different memories, and it was just one of those most incredible things in my life that I've ever had to go through, and it was just great that we were able to get back into the competition.
Jerry, what were the emotions like for you watching that first episode and reliving those moments 2 decades ago?
Wow, it just brought back all the memories of that time, and it showed that we really were a band of brothers and sisters, not just, us people involved at the organisation level, but the members. It was just a community group. It was a South Sydney family, and it made me realise how far we've come and how close we were to extinction. And it was just a collective effort. I think it's the greatest effort in Australian sport, that a club like ours that was marked for extinction could just take on amazing corporate giants, the NRL, batteries of lawyers, and that we won. And it was a community effort that showed that South Sydney really is the people's team.
And Martin, for you would have experienced all similar emotions, but you got to do it beside your brother as well. That must have been something very special for you.
Yeah, it certainly brought us closer together, I suppose, and still does. We discuss everything related to Souths, all the games, and over the years, following the club has just been a big part of our lives. The interesting thing, of course, with South is that since 1908, it hasn't just been a football team, it's been a way of life for all the people that follow the club. And it's been very rewarding. You know, there's been ups and downs that we've had over the years, of course, but being able to go through that with friends and other supporters and other brothers in the South family has made that special. You know, no one at South ever feels they're on their own. And hopefully this year we can bring home another premiership. One of the things I always say, especially about South, is there were 2 world wars and a depression, and people followed South in that time, and they followed football because football was the only thing they could afford. So when it was taken away from the people, it meant so much because it was generations who had followed the club from day one. And that's why this whole thing has been so important and so rewarding.
Steve, back over to you. Martin mentioned there about friends and in turn brothers that were developed, relationships that were developed during this time and the fight for reinstatement. Can you tell us a bit more about that and the lifelong friends that you made through this process?
Jeremy, yeah, there was so many people. Mike Whitney, I bumped into day before yesterday on the golf course, and the first word he said, "How are you, brother?" And that's the way we sort of talk to each other. It's the same as Martin and Jerry and I when we first got involved with this whole thing. We basically became brothers, and it's brought us closer together. We don't see as much, obviously, of each other as what we did back then, because we were with each other all day, every day for about 3 years, I think. So, but no, I mean, the friendships have been ongoing. The politicians I still see, and then Deirdre's still a very dear friend of mine, Laurie Burton, Albo, Dominic Sullivan. I talk to every now and then. It's brought everyone together, and we've remained close, and they're only a phone call away, and it's wonderful. They still treat me as their brother and vice versa.
Jerry, over to you now. I remember when we were speaking earlier about this first episode, you spoke about the lifelong friends that you've made, but also people that you see in that first episode that aren't any longer with us, and the emotions that stirs. Can you talk about some of the people that aren't with us any longer, such as Don Lane?
Yeah, well, of course, Don Lane was, sorry, I don't know if you got me on video, but have you got me on screen?
Yes, we've got you.
Oh, good, thanks. Yeah, no, look, there were a couple of people there. I noticed the wonderful Albert Cliff was there, and at that point he was our oldest living Rabbitoh, and members online now might remember that Albert rang the bell together with Russell at our first game back in 2002, and of course he's no longer with us. But yeah, Don Lane, Martin, Steve and I, and of course everybody else in the video, from too many people to mention, but Don has an enduring memory. We were very close. We were family with Don in the spiritual sense and the South Sydney sense. And seeing Don there, many people that are online now probably do know the role that Don played early on back in the 70s in saving the Leagues Club and saving the football club, and his passion, and as Martin said, really promoted South Sydney through his unbelievable TV show. But Don's passion, his drive, his vision really inspired us, and we're very sad, and we all attended his funeral, which was a celebration of an amazing life. So, Don Lane's memory and legacy within South should never be forgotten. And also, I think as we go on through the series, there are a number of people that shared that wonderful joy, and the members and supporters. And we know a lot of them that we'll see on screen, and some we grabbed a snippet of tonight, are no longer with us. And it's the team now, and the position we're in is a tribute and testament to all those people who came before, and the board members that those men that Mike was talking about that really did the hard yards. And when we came on board, many of them are gone as well. And without mentioning names, their memory will always be remembered. It's a tribute. We carry on. South Sydney marches on with the spirit of all those people behind us. So yeah, it does evoke all of those memories of those people that have gone, and particularly Don. He'll be smiling. Don't worry. He'll be helping the team get ready for the grand final this year.
Now to you, Martin. The high-profile people that were part of the fight back. We saw Andrew Denton, Ray Martin, Mike Whitney. We spoke about Don Lane and some of the politicians there that had high profiles were obviously very important, but there were so many people that necessarily didn't have those high profiles that followed George Piggins into these battles, followed Nick Pappas into the courtroom each and every day. There were hundreds of volunteers and people supporting the cause that were all part of this push for reinstatement as well.
Yeah, the best story I can tell with regards to that support and people, we used to, during the court cases, we used to meet in Nick Pappas's office to discuss strategy and tactics, with the QCs and everyone else. And then we would walk from his office in Hunter Street, I think it was, and we'd walk to the court. And we would walk past building sites, and just down the street, a group of us, and we had South scarves and so forth on. And it was like going to war. The people would be yelling out, guys from building sites. It was just an incredible feeling that we used to get. So we never felt that we were on our own because we had everyone's support. And just walking through the city at that time, it's something we'll never forget. If I could say something else about Don, who was such a dear friend of ours, of all of us, and so passionate about South, not only South can thank Don, but I think rugby league in general, because during his TV shows twice a week, he would be talking rugby league, and that was shown, syndicated right throughout Australia. And it's one of the reasons why I think that there are so many South supporters in Perth, wherever you go in Australia, they're there. But at that time, there wasn't the national coverage. It was just a New South Wales or Queensland game. So Don took that to the rest of Australia, and I think rugby league should thank him for the coverage that they got at that time.
I guess that's similar to the role that Russell Crowe has played over the last probably 15 years as well, taking rugby league and the Rabbitohs to the world with some of the people that he has introduced to the game as well. And finally, Steve, to wrap it up with you for this interview that we're doing, how much are you looking forward to the next 14 episodes and some of the characters that Matt managed to track down to tell their stories around this time?
I think it's going to be great because as Jerry and Martin have both said, there was so many people involved and so many wonderful people and normal people that did so much for us back then. We were involved at a board level, but there was so many people that had input and so many people that wanted to help and helped in so many different ways that was the reason why we were successful in the end. There was so many wonderful supporters and people involved that got us across the line. So I'm really looking forward to it because there were some real characters, and sometimes you tend to forget some of the characters you meet, and people walk up to me and say, "Oh, hi, Steve," and sometimes I don't know them, and I'd met them back then, but we were meeting so many people that you don't necessarily remember. So I'm hoping to see some of them so I can put a name to a face, because these days you sometimes forget that name. So I'm really looking forward to it, and the story, of course. There's so much more to come.
Well, it's a story that's made for something like this, a documentary or a film, and it's going to be great to tell it through the eyes of the people that were so entrenched in it, such as yourself, Jerry and Martin. We thank you for your time tonight.
No worries at all.
Absolute pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Now, what we might do, we'll get Maddie Lucas back on the line with our panelists here, because we've had a few questions get sent through from our members this evening that they'd like to ask. Now, the first one is from Catherine Walker. She's from Middle Arm, and she said, "Was there ever a time where you thought, that's it, we'll never get back in, this is too hard?" We might go to you first of all, Jerry.
You know, we never had doubt. Obviously, when we prepared, I think one of the things that really helped get us across the line is that as a group and as a board, we knew this was coming from 1998. We were so prepared in that we had a strategy, we had a plan, and we never sort of lost confidence that we would win. We knew it would be a tough battle, but we were supremely positive with the support we had and with the righteousness of our cause, that we never really despaired. There were times when you got a little bit down and you thought that was it, but we believed in our cause, and because we had a plan and we knew where we were going to go with this, and we always knew we'd go to court, and we knew we'd have our day in court, and we knew that we had the backing of the vast majority of true sports people in this country. I don't think that we as a group had lost faith in our cause. We know that a lot of the members were down, a lot of people were down, and all the other clubs and everybody thought we were gone. But we kept a very positive view, and I think it was the preparation, the planning, the group we pulled together even before excluded. We planned ahead. It was like a military campaign, and I think that that's what helped get us over the line. And we were so focused on doing the job entrusted to us that we didn't have time to doubt. We just had to go ahead.
Our next question I might direct to you, Martin. It's from Jack Jones from Ipswich. He said in that first episode of the documentary, it was touched on the role of the juniors played in the reinstatement. How important were they in getting us over the line, and what does it mean to have that great relationship with South Sydney juniors again?
Well, the best thing I can say about the juniors, no Souths, because they were the people that got behind us. Number one, they supplied us with players and young guys coming through, which to this day is even getting more important. But at times in 1999, when we had to run without sponsors and run the club, there were no people. We had 2 or 3 people running the club. And the Group 14 put together a proposal to the juniors for funding. And the juniors came good, and quite a substantial amount of money, so that we could survive the 99 season. Because the question that News Limited and their legal people always asked at the courtroom was, what if South fall over in the middle of the season? What happens then? You know, they'll just ruin the comp and so forth. So that was always the fear. And the juniors were there to make sure that that didn't happen. And their support, Henry Morris and Keith McGraw and the people there over the years have just been fantastic support, even the moral support. And if I could just say, back to the previous question about what it felt like if you felt down, we didn't really feel down. We were always very confident. But we realised we were going to win when we were at the start of the first rally and marching down the street, and there were 40,000 people behind us. And then the second rally, 80,000, we knew we weren't going to lose.
Oh, fantastic. The next question we've got is directed to Matty Lucas, our producer and director of the documentary. It's from Kylie Murray from Burleigh. And she says, how did you manage to track down all of these people, and how far and wide did you have to travel to collect all the interviews that you have for this series?
Yeah, that's a good question. It sort of started, I'm trying to remember now. We started filming probably back in December, I would say. We started with a guy called John Trad, and then from there, I can't exactly recall. It might have been Michael Whitney, might have been one of the second ones. And then it was basically just following the paper trail, really. Those people would recommend someone. You need to speak to this person. We spoke to Nick Pappas, who was like, make sure you include this, and this person. So that was the sort of thing. And then as we went along, when you interview people, you discover more details. You're like, I have to talk to this person now. You can't leave them out because this is a vital part of the story. We're lucky, before this sort of next lockdown that we're in right now, we were traveling to games. There was a guy called Bob Berry in Dubbo who fundraised on his own. I think it was 15 grand or so for the club, where they took a game out to the bush back in 2000 sometime, maybe 01. I think it was about 2000. He raised 15 grand. That was just like one story of just one guy who, did well for the club. And then obviously we had that Panthers game in Dubbo, so we managed to talk to him. I was hoping to get a hold of Billy Moore up in the Sunshine Coast when we played the Warriors up there, but obviously that fell through because obviously he was another person who, finished up at North Sydney when they ended and merged, and, played for South in those exhibition games. So that would have been good to get his perspective. Unfortunately, that sort of fell through, but it was, I guess we were sort of blessed with the people that we spoke to were always eager to help and point in the right direction of who to speak to. And, with the job, you travel around a bit so you can get to meet these people. And most, 99% or 90% are still based in Sydney, which is pivotal and good.
And I know you're working very hard to get two very important people, get interviews done with them for some of the episodes that haven't been finished. So fingers crossed we can get hold of them, because they hold a very important piece in this story puzzle that you've been putting together.
Yeah, 100%, Jez.
Our next question comes from John Hall from Springwood. I might direct this to the three gentlemen that featured in the video tonight, to all three of you. It's an interesting question. He says, if our club hadn't been thrown out, do you feel that we would be as competitive today? Although it would have been really painful, do you think 20 years later it's actually been a positive?
I'll jump in. I think there's so many things that happened during that time, and it's like the one door opens, another door closes, or what it's sliding doors. And I think at the end of the day, had we have not gone down the course that we'd gone down, we probably wouldn't be there today, simply because we weren't in a good financial situation. A whole lot of things would have had to change anyhow. And, the fact of the matter, Russell Crowe and when later on, the fact that we went down that road led to these guys becoming involved and privatising the club. So I don't believe that we would probably still be there had we not gone down the path that we went down. Don't know about the other guys.
I agree with that, Steve.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think the old saying is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah. And especially now, when you look back, going through that adversity that we went through and the bad times, it makes the good times better. But I always will remember the periods of going to the court cases, coming back and everything. But the one thing that stands out is at the end of 2014 grand final, Jerry and I stood there arm in arm, looking over the South crowd, which was just about 3/4 of the stadium, just going completely off their brain. And I think that gave so much joy to everyone. And it gave them the hope and strength that they got from fighting back. And I agree with Steve. I doubt whether we would have been there if we hadn't gone through what we went through.
Yeah. I'd probably add to the trifecta there and saying, look, it was a very close thing. And I clearly remember when we were excluded, the despair was great, obviously. And many of you watching tonight were there, and you remember that we thought we were gone. And we were very close to the win from a financial point of view. And again, we'll reinforce the wonderful support at the beginning. Without the juniors to really kickstart us, that it would have been a very different story. Yeah, I agree with Stephen Martin. I think had we not been excluded, we were definitely on a downward spiral. Financially, it was the issue. We had to really bring together a plan that would generate dollars and money to compete. And had we even been reinstated for the season while the court case was going on, we first went for what was called an interlocutory injunction. Many of you might remember that, where we applied to be reinstated pending court action. But the reality was, had that happened, we couldn't afford a court case and put a team on the field at the same time. So in a way, it was a blessing in disguise that we could regroup, reorganise, and our group and George and everybody involved in the juniors could rally all of our members and supporters to build up the dollars that we needed, the support that we needed. So yeah, it's an interesting question, and thank you for that. But it really evokes how dire it was, but how great it was that we were able to work together to bring us back in the comp collectively, all of us.
If I could just add, there's one person, we've mentioned, quite a few people, but there's one person who not many South supporters are aware of his contribution, but Kerry Stokes had a really major influence in us surviving the court cases. And I'm sure that will come up in future episodes. And the role that Andrew Denton and Mike Whitney played together with Kerry Stokes. Because, as I said before about the juniors, no Kerry Stokes, no South Sydney.
Yeah, and I guess personally, having worked at the club for 20 years and under the stewardship now of Russell Crowe and Nick Pappas and Blake Solly, I don't think as you guys have said, I don't think we'd be in the position we are today at the top of the competition, not only in terms of football ability, but also membership, sponsorship, merchandise sales, every commercial measure that you can have, television ratings. It's all based on the foundation that was set by everyone fighting for our fight back in the reinstatement. Now, our final question, sorry we can't get to everybody's questions that have come in tonight, but we're hoping that some of the questions that you're asking will be answered over the next 14 episodes. But the final one that's come in is from Eric Dalcol. He's from Woongarra. And he has asked, how big a role did the fans marching through the streets of Sydney play in the reinstatement? It really was the shot across the bow that put it in everyone's face that we were serious about this.
Absolutely. That was a massive role. Jerry and Martin, you guys comment on it, but it was to see those people walking down George Street. Was when we were at the town hall. I remember looking back down George Street, and it was a sea of people, and we couldn't believe it. And that was the catalyst for, as Martin said earlier, for our success. It was people power. So
yeah. The interesting thing with that was that after the first rally, or during the first rally, the coverage in the media in News Limited was, I think, page 29, that there was a rally, but there was no coverage at all. The second rally, we were on national television. There were helicopters filming from the TV stations, and it was all over the media. So that was the result of the rallies that it had on News Limited and all the media. And it then became such a high profile event that those rallies played an enormous part in our survival.
Yeah, I might just add to that obviously everybody knows there were 2 rallies. The second rally was instigated by the demise of the Auckland Warriors and the rise of the New Zealand Warriors a few days later as a $2 company, which outraged us all. I think News Limited did us and NRL did us a great favour at that time by making that happen, because that just enraged us so much. We got 80,000 people in the streets within 7 days of organisation from woe to go. So that was really put them on notice that we were not going to be moved. And I might just add that we had the opportunity, as a group and as a board at the time, to be able to communicate. There were communications going on with people within the NRL and News Limited. And we clearly said to them, well, you can see you picked the wrong team. And that message that we gave them at the time was brought back to us after we were reinstated and said, yep, we picked the wrong team. So, they knew that was the real turning point, the rallies, without a doubt. They're etched in everybody's memory. We, as part of many people, but we as part of the organising committee of those rallies, for me personally, it was probably one of the greatest things, apart from the birth of my children, was probably the greatest thing that I've had the pleasure of being involved with. And I'm sure Martin and Steve feel the same way, plus the countless other people, the other board members, the group 14, the board, and particularly the members. It's something that has become part of the South Sydney story. I marched. That's a rallying cry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If I could just say too, Jerry, that one of the things in the rallies, especially the second one, and as you mentioned about, the New Zealand, Auckland Warriors going down and a new team started up, it infuriated people, because then people from the other clubs suddenly realised, hey, that could be our club next time. And the great thing in that second rally was the number of people from especially the traditional clubs who came to support us. There were people who, were not South fans. I know Rooster supporters who were friends of mine. They came to the rally. So we had a lot of people from the other clubs then realising that the effect that throwing South out, it wouldn't stop there. And that was a pleasing thing too. We got support from the supporters of the other clubs.
Yep. And one of the last points, sorry, Jezza and everyone, but this is a really sort of salient point. Whilst we're out of the comp and at the very beginning, and Martin and Steve will reinforce this, we did approach some of the traditional clubs that had merged to join us in the fight, and they thought, no, well, we're gone. We've got to merge or die, they thought. And it was really interesting that after the rallies and it became apparent that we'd generated such support, without mentioning any names, but a couple of very senior people within those clubs that no longer exist in their own right said, yep, we should have joined you.
It evokes absolutely fantastic memories of people powerhousing. It's hard enough to get 8 or 80 people to agree on something, let alone 80,000 people. And for our younger members that are online, just to imagine 80,000 people marching the streets, that is filling Stadium Australia with people marching the streets for South Sydney's reinstatement. It's something that's quite unbelievable. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. That's the end of our Q&A session. We thank you so much for everything that you've done for the club over decades of support, and we thank you for everything that you continue to do for the club. You are a living, breathing tie to those hard times that we went through, but as we've discussed, it's made us stronger, and have a look at us now. We're right in line to be there on 3 October 2021 this year.
Thank you, Jez.
Glory,
Thanks,
glory
Stu.
to South Sydney.
Yeah, up the mighty Rabbitohs.
Fantastic. Now we'll go through, we've got some prizes to give away for the best questions that were sent in by our members this evening. The first one we have is a 2020 signed jersey, and Catherine Walker has won that one. We also have a wine and beer package that's proudly donated by our partners Young Henry's and Robert Oatley Wines. That was won by John Hall. And finally, our third prize is your 2022 membership is on us. So it will be a complimentary 2022 membership to say thank you for your years of loyalty. And that will go to Eric Dalcol for his fantastic question here tonight. So our membership team will be in contact with all of our winners tonight. Thank you so much to everyone that's joined us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Tales of Reinstatement, proudly brought to you by the wonderful people at Menu Log. Now, the first episode, that episode will be shown to the public for the first time on the 8th of September. The second episode will go to air on the 15th of September. And you can see that on the Rabbitohs website at rabbitohs.com.au. You'll be able to watch it through our social media channels, and you'll also be able to see it on the South Sydney official YouTube channel. So keep an eye out there and watch the next 14 episodes as they come out. Now, after the end of tonight's broadcast, you'll be sent a feedback form. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on tonight's episode and this production that we've put together for our members, trying to connect while we can't all come together at games or events where we might have done a public showing of this in a theatre or something like that, using the great people at Zoom, another proud corporate partner of the Rabbitohs, to be able to bring this to you. So we hope you all enjoyed the first episode of Tales of Reinstatement. There's plenty more to come starting from mid-September. We thank you for joining us tonight, and up the mighty Rabbitohs.